Today I want to play with my IwaEnogu pigments. This is the palette that I'll be using. I have 12 different colors. I mixed them from pigments that came in this box. And you can see how tiny each of them was, not even, maybe half filled. And this is the cover of the box. I don't even know if this is right side or this is right side. But I bought this in Paris at Sennelier. And they are normally used in traditional style Nihonga Japanese painting, and the way they're used is that the pigments themselves are mixed with a special glue, and then they're used to paint on this special rice paper. But it needs to be prepared right before being used, and frankly that's just not my style. I paint when I can. I'm not a professional painter like most of you watching this, I imagine, and you want to be able to paint when you have a chance. So the idea of preparing all my own paints each time before I actually paint is quite overwhelming. So when I was at Sennelier, I spoke to the young man there who treated me with some condescension, but he did give me this information that I would be able to use those pigments with my regular watercolor medium. He warned me that I can't just mix them with water or it'll come off the page, and of course I knew that, but it was worth putting up with his condescension to find this information. So this is a little box. I have 5 of them that I bought in Lille in the old stock market. There's a flea market a few days a week, and my husband spotted these. And the image comes from a series of commercials that used to be aired on French cinemas before the feature film. And because the pigments are so expensive but so beautiful, I thought it would be more fun to share it by making small amounts of many different colors. So I prepared these palettes, and I found these most adorable tiny bottle caps, and they're metal. And because they're so tiny, I thought instead of putting the magnet here and then relying on the tin to magnetize it, I got a little sheet of magnetic, well, it's not paper, it's just a magnetic sheet that is adhesive, and I glued it. I stuck it to the bottom of the tin. This way you don't have to deal with the little tiny magnets under these teeny tiny bottle caps. Each measures about, well, you need about 4 of these to fill a regular half pan of paint, like say this one, a typical half pan. I don't know exactly what the milliliters are, but I checked, and you need about 4. So this is about a quarter, a little more than a quarter of a half pan. But still, I thought it'd be more fun to have them all in small amounts than to just have a few in larger quantities. And the tin is adorable, but not very sturdy or reliable. So I would not recommend this for travel. And I didn't really give them names because they're kind of obvious names, but these are the colors we have. 3 shades of blue, a nice turquoise, a bright green, bright yellow, ochre, red, pink, like a cool dark red, brown, and gray. And these are made with glass, and I'm going to show you some of the paintings I did with them. This is a like Asian style painting of a wisteria. These are some cosmos, strange color for cosmos. And this is on Amalfi paper, and this is also on Amalfi paper, and it's my favorite, and it's also a little bit of an Asian flair to it, and it's a lotus pond with a white egret in it. The colors are very bright. As I mentioned, they're made of glass, and that is because this style of painting used to be done with just minerals, which is where things like, I've made before paints like a serpentine and tourmaline, and the reason why these pigments are available is because the Japanese use them for this kind of watercolor type art, not really watercolor actually. But then there's only so many colors that you can get from minerals and gemstones, and that's where the glass pigment idea came in. So the way these are done is that big slabs of glass, I don't know how big, but they're slabs of colored glass that are made, and then after that they're treated the same way as if they were mineral through the same process. And there are different sizes of particles, and what's important in this style of painting is that the particles are all the same. The ones I bought are the smallest size of particles, I believe. Certainly that's true of the gemstone. Now I'm not so sure. Actually, no, because these are 9. These are number 9. I think this refers to the size of the particles. So you can get smaller ones. But this, when I bought them, I had no idea that I had to look for that number or anything like that. So I use them. They're lovely. They do granulate a lot, probably because of the size of the particles. So if you don't like granulation, you wouldn't like these paints. But the colors are so bright, and the idea of painting with glass is just so lovely. I'm really enjoying them, and I hope to share this with others. So this is my story about the IwaEnogu pigments that I've recently mixed into watercolors. So of course the first painting I wanted to do as a demo of sorts is a view of my lake, and I thought I'd do a nighttime view starting with yellow of the moon. I did a very basic imaginary sketch, and I dropped a little bit of red onto that yellow moon. And now I'm going to wet the rest of the paper. And because it's nighttime, I want it to be dark, and that's going to mean several layers. And I want to make sure of 2 things here. One is that I don't wet the moon because I don't really want green around it, but also because it'll be good to have it be more light around it. So I'm going to start with the lightest blue, just dropping it in the wet paper. And then a medium blue. It's such a treat to have 3 blues in this palette. I am a big lover of blues, and even the most limited palette for me needs to include at least 2 blues. And then I have this indigo, which is the darkest color in this palette. There is no black. Numerous colors of these IwaEnogu paints exist, and I bought a set, but there's several set, and I'm assuming that some of them would have black, but this one doesn't. And a little bit of the brown here just to darken it even more. And then of course we need to let this sit. But first I'm going to drop a little water just to encourage this gorgeous granulation. If you don't like granulation, these paints are not for you. I've never met anybody who actually doesn't like granulation. But I guess there are situations where you may not want it. People say the sky. I love granulation in the sky. All right, drying time. So while that dries, I'm going to do another painting, start another painting. And this is a little bird in some kind of marsh. And I'm going to work mostly with gray here. It's a gray bird. I guess you could make it whatever color you want, and you can be sure that I'll be adding more color, but we're going to start with gray. And I'm going to make this reed that is perched on green. And I'm going to start doing some kind of shadow with the indigo and make it dark where it's supposed to be dark. But I don't want to go too dark right away, which tends to be my issue. And I'll add some pink here. And now, of course, I need to let this dry. These are very cheerful paints in my view. There's something about these colors, they're just cheerful. I plan on using them on a gloomy day. I can't imagine painting with this and staying gloomy. They also personally remind me of a great day in Paris when I bought them. And my poor husband was waiting outside and I was getting abused by the young staff there. But because I'm 53 and self-confident about a lot of things, I just found it really funny, not offensive at all, that this young man thought I was just this, I don't know. Older people get mistreated. Young people get mistreated. Old people get mistreated. Humans are good at mistreating each other. Is the lesson there. But it's true, though, that I think teenagers get mistreated a lot. And young people get abused more than others, and old people. So there's like a span of time, maybe between the age of 30 and 45, when you're less likely to be mistreated. I'm rambling here. I'm using the different blues here for the water, and then I want the fish to be a little bit different from each other. Some more red, some more yellow, but all of them should have a little bit of each. And this too now needs to dry. While off camera, I just to save some time, I went over this with some more yellow so that it would be dry for this second layer, and I'm going on it with the light blue to preserve a certain lightness around the moonshine, and then this darker blue, finally followed by this indigo color, on which I'm going to add some brown. This will give a bit of a complementary effect and also darken it and give it some variety. So I'm doing one last layer on the water here. And I'm going to let this dry soon so that we can then do the mountains. I'm putting some pink just because I like it. There's a learning curve to using these, and I haven't reached the level where I'd like to be comfortable with them. But then again, I'm not that comfortable with any kind of art, so it's good. Look at the absolutely beautiful kind of granulation that's happening here. You can see the glass particles separating. I love that. I could just sit here and watch it. So instead, here we have this second layer of, it's the third, because I already, again, off camera, it was something small, so I figure it'd save a step. Since I was able to paint quickly but not to film, because you need a certain quiet in the house to film. It was easier when I was filming just for Facebook. I would remove the audio, and so I could paint and chat with my husband in the other room, or the kids when they were still living at home, and that worked okay, but not with audio. You kind of need privacy. So I did the bamboo, and I'm going to do the, off camera I had done the legs and the eye, all with just this indigo along with a little bit of the brown. And now I'm going to use some gray. These colors are beautifully transparent. It really is like painting with glass. Tiny, tiny glass powder mites. I'm going to just ad-lib a bit with colors. Treat this as a way of testing the colors rather than a realistic bird. So some of the red. I'll use some of that darker maroon. More gray here. And then I want to let this dry before assessing it one last time. And here are my little fish. Again, offline I did the eyes. That's all I did. But those really needed to dry before going any further. This will be the mostly yellow fish. So I went over again with the yellow and a little bit of the pink here. This top one, oh, I'll start with red, but I'll add some yellow for a true orange. And this I will try to make into the reddest of them all. This is a beautifully bright and yet light red. Might be like a cad red light with regular watercolors. Again, I don't know if the camera is focusing, but the granulation is really fabulous on these. work on the water a little bit. I want to do some splatters, or spatters. I never know which is the word. But I don't want them to end on the wet fish. Just letting the water mix for now. I'll do the spatters when the fish is nice and dry, so that the color will rest on it instead of mixing. And we're going to let this dry. The plan is to finish this now, because even though I normally like several layers for the mountains, I think this glass is getting rather thick and I don't want to lose the transparency. So I started with the indigo, then I'm going with the layer of brown. For the base of the mountains. Tiny bit of red or pink, better yet, under the moon, whereas more darkness farther away from the moon. Try to straighten this. Straight lines are not my forte. And then a layer here to differentiate it, the lake more from the sky. I'm gonna be bold and put a little bit of yellow under the moon, and then a little bit of pink to transition to the blue without getting green, too green. And you have to paint very lightly with these because they move easily. The layer below gets lifted easily. I haven't tried them on a rough paper, but that would be fun. So this is my little moonscape over the lake. And it's simple, enjoyable. It's a good way to test paints. Now we have this little bird. I really like how the eye came out. I'm going to emphasize the legs a little bit with the darkest color, and the beak, which is this indigo. I want to have a little bit of brightness here, so I'm putting some turquoise. It's still pretty neutral because of the what's in the back. So more shadow on the bottom part to indicate volume here too. Because the background is white here, and I'm going to leave it white, even though my husband doesn't like white backgrounds, and he teases me saying that he likes the painting, but it's not done. Still, with the white background, I like to have a bright subject, or at least intense. I mean, it could be neutral colors. These are kind of neutral, but I don't like wishy-washy. So this is cute, and I don't want to overwork it. So even though more could be done, the only other thing I'm going to do is darken the edges of the bamboo to make it look more three-dimensional. So I'm going to call this little perched sideways bird done. Last thing I have left to complete is our little birds. I'm going to add some movement to the water. I mentioned spattering earlier, but I don't know. We'll see how the spirit moves. I'm grateful that this set, even though it's only 12 colors, it has 3 different blues. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to try spattering. I think it could use it. So, a little bit of the dark and a little bit of the light. And with a paper towel, I'm going to get rid of that one and that one, because I do want to accentuate the colors here a little bit more. So make the red a little redder. With red. But I'm also going to use a little bit of this dark red, again for a sense of dimension and shadow. So mostly around the edges. Same with the yellow, I'm gonna use a little bit more. And a little bit of red at the edges, the bottom especially. And then this top one that's meant to be orange, I'm going to increase its orangeness by adding both yellow and orange. And again, before I overwork it, I'll stop here. It's a cute, fun little painting that kind of showcases the brightness of these colors. One last thing I want to show you is that this morning I just painted this off camera while the house had to be still quiet. And this is lovely paper that I bought online. It's an Italian cotton paper from the region of Tuscany, and I really recommend it. It's 100% cotton paper. It is cold press, what I bought, because that's what I'm most comfortable with, but it's kind of a smooth cold press. And it's a bright white, and I thought of making fishes again, and I just really enjoyed painting it. Thank you for watching. I, of course, always welcome your questions or comments.